Today, when we commemorate this European Day of Languages in the 30 member states of the European Union, we do not gather in festive celebrations. This day is not even an official holiday. As happens every year, most citizens will only take notice of this unspectacular event when they see a brief mention of it in the newspaper or on the evening news. Many will not notice it at all. Yet, we should have all reason to celebrate. The achievements in the preservation, support, economic use and technological protection of our languages belong to the true success stories of our Union of Sovereign European States. Today is the first time that the European Day of Languages falls in a Swiss presidency of the Council of the European Union, which also happens to be our first presidency. We Swiss have a particular relationship with language, with multilingualism and with the greatest possible cultural autonomy of freely joined ethnic groups. We were very skeptical for a long time whether the European Union could indeed establish for the first time in history a political and economic world power in which so many peoples managed to peacefully succeed in global competition through voluntary and egalitarian political integration without losing their cultural identity. We were not the only skeptics. After the great eastward enlargement in 2004 and 2007, leading to a union of 27 member states, it became obvious that the commitment to maintaining cultural and linguistic diversity would become an immense economic burden for the community. The translation services of the European institutions could no longer translate many important documents into all of the official languages of the members. Many electronic services and software platforms had to limit the number of supported languages. Even the long-planned European Community patent was repeatedly deferred due to the unsolved problem of providing the patent text in all participating languages. Globalization, digitization, and the immense cost of translating the ever-growing volume of information produced economic pressure on the use of the smaller languages in business and society, pressure that would inevitably lead to a situation in which these languages would become limited to usage in family, church and local community affairs. European decision-makers definitely suspected the types of threats that could materialize. European history is full with stories of bloody wars about ethnic, national and cultural autonomy, whose points of contention almost always included issues of language. The nationalist anti-integration activists, especially in smaller or new member states, would know exactly how to unscrupulously exploit every disadvantage of their language communities for their own political purposes. In the times of financial crisis, nuclear accidents and serious threats to the euro through insolvent member states between 2008 and 2011, the predominant political themes were safe energy, the community currency and European financial policy. Little attention was devoted to the protection of cultural and linguistic diversity or equal opportunities for national and regional cultures. Yet, the omens were clear to see. The divide between large and small languages, especially regarding availability of technologies and resources, was getting larger and larger. Many internet services, software products and much online content could not be provided anymore in all languages. Language technology research also focused on English and a few other big languages. In 2009 and 2010, 49.5% of the scientific publications of the most important conference and the top research journal for computational linguistics reported on technologies for English. For the other 22 official EU languages, the average share was merely 1.2%. 6 official languages were not represented at all in any of the included publications of both years. Many at least hoped for a solution to the translation problem from the internet technology giant Google, who already in 2011 offered a free web translation service between 57 languages. Yet most of the fully automatically generated translations were only usable for obtaining an overview of the content of the texts. With its service, Google addressed a market need that until then had not really been apparent, because human translators could not have sold translations of the same quality. Since Google filled this need for free, neither translation companies nor producers of machine translation products could establish a noticeable market for GIS translation. The useful and much appreciated free translation services on the internet could not, in any case, do anything about the exploding costs for the continually growing volume of printed or electronically disseminated high-quality translations required by law or dictated by market pressure. The breakthroughs in machine translation and the triumph of technology in the translation industry could not have been predicted in 2011 because almost the entire research community was jostling in a competition to catch up to Google, while the friendly Big Brother was dominating research and the market with its advances in language data, capital investment, and money-making applications for lower quality translation. The European language technology industry was ambitious and had much potential, but it was fragmented and it did not have any political clout. The innovative small and medium-sized companies made themselves comfortable in niche markets, and they did not have any realistic opportunities to participate in the advancement of translation technology. The turnaround started from research. 47 European research centers in 31 countries joined a network of excellence named MetaNet that prepared a research offensive for the multilingual European Information Society. The members of this network were convinced that a joint effort of researchers, providers and suppliers of language technology could achieve the preservation of linguistic diversity in the digital age and advance the commercial use of language technology in global competition. In the aspiring Technology Alliance for Multilingual Europe, called META, academics, technologists, industrialists, language service providers and research planners first developed a common vision and then, guided by this vision, a strategic research agenda. The goals of META also met with great approval outside of the language technology circles. Representatives from language communities, linguists, educators, translators and interpreters also worked in the alliance. As to be expected, the META visionaries could not predict all the developments that occurred since then. The breakthrough in automatic translation was achieved through 4 components that the META vision groups had correctly forecast. First, the creation and common use of language and technological resources for all European languages and many strategically important non-European languages. Second, the systematic concentration on the remaining impediments for high quality, automated translation as well as close cooperation between computer scientists, translators, mathematicians and linguists involved in such research. Third, the inclusion of semantic technologies and knowledge resources in automated translation processes. Fourth, the development of methods optimized over many years for close interaction between human creativity and computational capacity in the production of high-quality translation. The results of this long-term research push are now being commercially implemented. The new infrastructures of the global network that in 2011 were still being called cloud computing and the Internet of Services were essential for the realization of the grand vision. Actually, our fashionable term sky computing can be traced back historically to the cloudy or partly clouded metaphor of cloud computing. The successful translation sky consists, as predicted, of innumerable combinations of automated trusted services, the sky services, if needed, complemented by human services provided by translators, language experts or subject area specialists. In this way, every kind of text can be instantaneously or quite quickly translated today in the required quality from any location and usually for a fraction of the earlier costs. When connected to the services of voice sky, oral texts or spoken dialogues can also be translated, something most of us have greatly appreciated during trips to foreign countries. As you may have tried yourself, the newest rage is to personalize such translations according to style and voice. A colleague of mine, a fellow politician in the Chinese government, recently tried to amaze me with a Swiss accent and Eurospeak diction. Because he sounded like a farmer from Zermatt, reading from an EC pamphlet with occasional pronunciation errors, he unnecessarily confused me at first. The various technologies for our European languages do not only serve for translation and interpretation. Language technology helps everywhere where language is used. In document production, it checks and corrects the text. In language learning, it assesses the student's progress. In media industry, it supports the production of subtitles for movies and television. In the digital age, technology has become so important for human language. But language, on the other hand, plays an essential role for the success of information technology. In the first decade of our millennium, when the visionaries of computer science predicted the Internet of Things, their bold prophecies were met with a mixture of amused skepticism and unexpressed apprehension. Would we really soon receive an email complaint from our wardrobe closet? And would the lawn mowers of the neighborhood organize themselves as a Facebook community? Why should useful artifacts intrude in our sacred intellectual spheres of information and knowledge exchange? The long-predicted Internet of Things is with us today. For a long time we did not believe that all the big and little things around us really needed and deserved IP numbers and homepages. But gradually we got more and more annoyed whenever we could not find needed web information on some products and other things standing right in front of us. Today we take it for granted that we can address a nice building, a broken household item, a bottle of wine and all the other non-living things around us to ask them questions about their origin, design, age, material, price or whatever else we want to know. Of course, not all these things needed to have a little internet computer inside in order to be present on the net. This extreme vision was ecologically and economically not very well thought through. An informative and responsive web presence suffices for most artifacts and natural treasures as long as our mobile devices can reliably identify them. However, many devices, appliances, machines, buildings and vehicles that can be controlled are already nodes of the Internet, and we can safely expect this number to grow within the next 10 years. Most of these controllable things take orders, questions and information via spoken and written language related to them by voice input via our mobile or by SMS, email, chat or whatever works best in a given situation. My 4-year-old niece does not understand why she cannot talk to all things yet, but she enjoys it tremendously to ask every piece of furniture numerous times for their names, colors and materials. I cannot explain to her that the speed of innovation does not only depend on technology but also on economical factors and social inertia. Language technology has been essential to overcoming the barrier between users and their ambient technology. Finally, people can use their favorite means of communication for interacting with their technological environment, the language they grew up with. What language do I use when I tell my Vietnamese kitchen oven to preheat to 230 degrees, when I ask the impressive university building in La Valletta about its date of erection, or when I lower the air conditioning in a Brazilian rental car? What an unstrange world we live in, where the Buenos Aires rental car replies to me in Zurich dialect, and where every employee in a factory can control the machines and robots in his or her own language. But today language can do much more for us. Not only can we ask buildings and command machines, we can also freely converse with humankind's accumulated knowledge. In legends and fairy tales, a hero may be granted 1 or 3 questions to the omniscient sage, but in our advancing knowledge society, every man, woman or child can access the most knowledgeable source in history at any time, at any place, and for any reason. The Internet has become the container for all knowledge ever formulated, and at the same time a colossal memory of data from which much more knowledge and information can be derived. And we are close to the point now at which all printed material, old and new, will also be available and accessible on the web. Whereas the Internet created the worldwide network of computers, the endless hypertext of the www was the first important step toward the dense networking of all information on this network. Add semantics plus inferencing and the web of interlinked texts and other media will turn into a knowledge-like structure to be accessed and utilized like a gigantic extension of our individual knowledge. This insight has been the driving force behind the program of a new web whose structure is semantic. A naive vision of a semantic web was built on the expectation that people would learn and like to formulate web content in logics, in formal languages quite distant from human language. During the last 15 years, the insight has prevailed that people will always continue to express and comprehend knowledge and thought in their own language. Thus, for realization of the semantic web, the machine will have to extract and exploit meaning from human language. The famous electronic quiz champion Watson, built by IBM researchers in 2011, combined language processing with powerful data retrieval methods. Playing then the popular TV quiz Jeopardy! Watson needed a couple of hints, some informal description, to guess a person or concept. The longer the description, the better was Watson's hit rate. No human could beat the truckload of semiconducting brain power. But most questions asked today, Watson could not have answered. Any query and any source in a language other than English Watson could not process. The extraction of meaning from texts has long been one of the central tasks of language technology, but without the grand technology push in the past 10 years, we would still not be able today to receive answers and background information to demanding queries. Only 10 years ago, progress seemed to be blocked by a vicious circle. Since intellectual knowledge engineering had already failed 20 years earlier, it was clear that knowledge of the targeted complexity and volume could only be learned automatically from texts. On the other hand, it was also known that any understanding of texts requires massive world knowledge. It took careful planning, tedious resource preparation, and the systematic collaboration of hundreds of researchers to implement and conduct a bootstrapping process of unprecedented computational power. This was an amazing international cooperation of computational linguists, knowledge technologists, and web scientists. Although today we are still far away from being able to understand any text and therefore from bona fide artificial intelligence, the stock of knowledge suitable for automatic access and reasoning has virtually exploded. Now we can even find hidden information by one or several natural questions. Remember in contrast the 2010 Google searches on a cell phone, damaging your eyes by skimming through long lists of suggested pages on a tiny display. Language technology also facilitates all kinds of transactions such as reservations, purchases and appointments through voice, chat or email. Soon, this access to knowledge will not only be used by us directly, but also by a new generation of reactive and proactive apps that assist us at work and in everyday life. Where will this end? Will we be able to carry out verbal arguments with virtual adversaries? Will it become possible to talk to the characters of interactive movies? Will language technology write my speeches? The sky is not the limit. Today it feels good to confirm that linguistic diversity could be preserved in Europe and that the multilingual European society is thriving. As we know, our ambitious but successful model of egalitarian political integration is about to be copied by regions in other parts of the world. For shaping our world, you fortunately can still use the best language there is, your language. Let us celebrate this wonderful language together with all the others, and let us thank the technologies that understand us and that help us to understand others and our complex world. Thank you.